Hello, today I'm going to make a very short video that demonstrates the Nexus window using the SWAT window framework that I developed within Trilleon, the automation framework. So I just want to show you what you can do with Trilleon from the Nexus window. You can launch all of the tests together by pressing this. That'll launch everything but debug tests. Okay, and then you can also go down here and you can launch tests by selecting the tests, which will show you various information about the attributes applied to the tests. You can launch them individually by selecting that. You can also launch your test by selecting the status symbols next to them individually. Additionally, you can launch tests by selecting the category names here, and once you've selected that, you can just launch all of the tests under that. You can choose a subset of the categories that you've chosen, and you can either launch one, two, whatever you wanted to do. You can launch multiple categories using that, and then you can also save categories using the favorites. And through here, you can select the categories or individual tests that you want to run, and then add them, and then give your favorites a name. Once you've done that, your favorites will appear in this list of categories, and you can launch them that way. Once you've launched them through the editor window, it will automatically start the game and start running the tests. I'm going to stop that though. Okay, so here we have the framework validation tool. There's what are essentially unit tests in the framework, and they will validate that everything about the test runner is working properly, and that all the attributes involved in the test runner work properly. So I'm going to show this runner console here on the right. Alright. And each of the tests that you run are going to show up here. This is not a normal test run, so you're not going to see individual tests here. But what I can demonstrate here right now is by selecting any message in the console, it'll open up a detailed window for that message, and you can read the entire message here. Validation is almost complete, and it is. So there's two phases to validation. The first one is simple checks on the different options available, and then more advanced tests that require coroutines are the second phase. And going back to the test manifest window, I want to finish going over the options here. This will just expand all the main categories. This, when you select this, will pause the editor automatically when an assertion fails on a test. This will run a method that's located in gamemaster.cs, and it will reset your account, but that will have to be customized. It does nothing by default, or rather there's no logic in that method. You'll want to put your own code in there, anything that could automatically clear an existing session's data and allow for a new account to be created. This will clear all cache data. That is anything that is not a configuration option or customization option that you've added. These files are stored on your user account folder and then under the Trilleon folder, and it's just various data that is test runs, history of test runs, and last test statuses, which are used in this window here. Information like that is cleared out and reset. This button will determine whether or not the current run will bother running any buddy tests that are included. That's particularly useful in the editor if you have buddy tests in your run and you are not going to have a second client able to run tests that require multiplayer logic. You might not want to run that in the editor. So by default, buddy tests are off. And this right here, we already went over, are the favorites. After that is toggling between unit tests and automation tests. So you, will bring you to the unit test view. And this will show you all the unit tests that exist in your framework. Right now, just debug tests. Now, what you can do is run them in exactly the same way that you run or launch the integration automation tests from here. Also, your favorites are specific to unit test and automation test views. So that will be saved there, and it'll appear exactly the same way. Then we go back to the integration automation tests, and we have the example fave that we created earlier. So that is dependent on the view mode that you show. You can also choose which default view you use. Maybe you aren't making any unit, or rather automation integration tests, and you're only using Trilleon for your unit tests. So maybe you want the default to be the unit test view, and you can change that, and I'll go over customization options shortly. So we went over this window. This is the, let me go ahead and actually start a test run all tests, go back to the console, and from here, it'll show you all of the abridged comments. That will be important comments that always appear, but you can also see verbose and look at absolutely everything. And then you can also see any pub sub messages. So this is trying to, I have pub sub sending information out in the editor. By default, it doesn't do that. So if you're not actually using the pub sub, either pub nub or the socket connection, Redis pub sub, then you won't have anything here in the editor. So we see individual tests here. Now, if you select the test, it will open it up in a single test report where you can view information on the test. And if there's a failed test, that might be helpful, so you can start looking into the failure right away instead of waiting for the entire test run to complete and generate a report. All right, you can clear this. You can pause. Pause will queue messages, so as soon as you unpause it, it will post anything that queued automatically. You can clear, and it also puts your current FPS counter up here. All right, here we have the command log. And what this does is it shows all the commands that you have in your system. There are a few that come with Trilleon, and you can customize them. They can be game-specific or company-specific. And when I drill down into the code to go into more detail about that, I can show you exactly where that's done, but it will be in the command console base, the command console core, and command console files for extending these console commands. Here you can search for console commands. And you can also add variables and then launch those commands through this user interface. So here we'll say, let's do all. Okay. So over here, we have the validation commands being checked, or the phase 1 validation. Actually, that's a good point to mention. Phase 1 validation is always done before a test run starts. And phase 2 is only done when you've gone in and selected validation. Okay. So I'll stop that there, and let's go back to the command console here. And I also want to mention that you can also open up the command console within your game. You can do this on device. Anywhere that automation is activated, you bring the command console up by pressing tilde, or you can change that, customize that. And then you can also say something like RT all, and that will launch all the tests. All right, let's go to the run report here. Here you can see all of the reports with a little bit of metadata on the past, failed, ignored, skipped tests here, and you can also delete reports. You can view them by pressing open report, and then you can see everything about your automation run. You can also delete all. All right, here we have the generator window, and this has two subtabs, the assistant and the recorder. So what the assistant does is it allows you, for one, to select hierarchy auto select. It requires you to be in game mode. Once you've selected it and turned it on, whenever you select an object that is interactable in game, it will automatically highlight it in the hierarchy window on the left. So what I did there was I clicked on the object and held the click so that it didn't activate the click, but also selected it in the hierarchy window. And that'll allow you to find difficult to locate interactable objects down in hierarchies as children somewhere, and it prevents you from having to search through the long list of children to find it. All right. Next, once you've selected the object, it will show you information on it. It'll tell you what type of object it is, and then it'll give you all the components on there. The hierarchy window is one of the oldest, or this rather, assistant window is one of the oldest editor windows and is going to be overhauled shortly. Right now I've disabled the code HUD stub generation logic. It'll allow you to choose things like how you want to interact with this object, and then you can generate a stub of code that will give you the test object for interacting with that, and then copy the actual step that will click it or input text, whatever you choose. And that'll be coming soon. Over here, the recorder window will allow you to record steps that you take in the game logic. So, like the assistant, it will turn on the hierarchy auto select. Well, it will attach listeners to all the objects. So you can turn this on, off and still record. Okay. So that option is here as well. Once you're recording, everything will be recorded on the right here as a step. So let me actually go ahead and click on them as I would. So tutorial, and I'll go ahead and click some as soon as it allows me. Okay. And over here, all of the steps appear. You can rearrange the steps if you accidentally clicked out of order, so you don't have to go back and restart everything. You can delete steps. You can also extend this. You can add an insertion step. And then you can also duplicate an action, delete actions. And then you can also go in and edit each step. And then you can add explicit weights here. And then once you're done, you can stop recording and view code. And it will generate the code for you. You just copy it and paste that into your tests, and then go ahead and run it back. And clear. Alright. This window is the dependency architecture window, and it shows you all of the usages of the dependency system sans dependency web in your system. So these are the master dependencies, and then masterless dependencies would also appear here if I had any of those, and that is tied to the attributes that you choose, such as dependency test ordering and dependency class ordering. If you have a dependency test outside of a dependency class, that would be a masterless dependency, and that is explained more on the wiki and also potentially in later videos. You can also open the dependency web view here, and that will bring up this view where you can visually see the different ways that the tests are connected to each other, and you can look at the details about those dependency web attributes by selecting on the details. And I'll go ahead and close that. This is the buddy info window, and I will actually go into more detail on that when I go and make videos on the buddy system, which is the asynchronous multiplayer testing options in Trilleon. And here is the settings window. Every setting option in the configuration or Trilleon config appears here. You can add custom keys to that. And then you can also manually edit them here. Oops. And once you've made changes, then you go down and save those changes. And if you were to go to the Trilleon config, the configs appear here. This window is the additional tools window, and every window that we just saw is available for opening from here in one single place. And you can also customize your Nexus from here, and I will be extending the customization options with every release. Right now you can choose how the default view will appear. So you saw that by default it's automation, but when we go ahead and reopen it, now it's in the unit test view. You can also choose how it will dock. So I just chose the game view, and now it docks next to the game view. And then you can also choose the order that the tabs appear up here. So I'll make the test manifests appear a little bit later in the order. So here's the test manifest window, which was number 1. Now it's sort of in the middle here. And then you can close the Nexus window by selecting that, or the normal way you would close a window. And that is the Trilleon Nexus, and it will be extended in the near future. Thanks for watching.